Hey guys, this is Tim Starnes at Cinesamples. I've got a really cool tutorial video for you this time about recording a solo instrument at home to mix in with your orchestral samples and how to get it to sound seamless and in the same space. But first I wanted to give you a little bit of background on me so you know who I am, where I'm coming from. Early 80s, started in television production, then on into live music production, touring with bands, recording engineering in the 90s in the studio, then into film music editing, and then most recently general managing Cinesamples since 2014. I actually got my start with Mike and Mike in 2007 mixing Cinetoms. And I followed that with producing Drums of War and then recording Piano in Blue and several little other libraries that I would throw in on here and there. Anyway, that's enough about me. I wanted to give you a little bit of background behind some of these tutorials. I taught for about 7 years at the NYU Graduate Film Score program, film music editing and some mixing as well. And I know how important it is to composers to get their music mixed correctly. And the big catch-22 is a composer needs to concentrate on composing and their craft. Yet the mix is also an important part of the music production process because it helps to realize the composer's vision. But if they spend too much time mixing, they take away from their time composing. So it's really difficult, I know this. That's why I try to give really simple, easy to wrap your head around solutions and the reasoning behind it, so that composers don't have to spend a lot of time mixing, but get a little bit of help here and there, and they can move forward with their composition. Okay, that said, let's get on with this tutorial. In previous tutorial videos, I've demonstrated the use of basic EQ, compression, and limiting. In this video, I'm going to get really specific. Let's say you got an orchestral composition going on and you got all your samples in there and it's sounding great, and you need a solo instrument that only a true soloist can play, either you or a friend. So you record in your own apartment. How do you get a soloist recorded in your apartment to fit into an orchestral sample playback? So in this tutorial video, I'm going to demonstrate techniques to help you get your solo instrument, live recorded solo instrument, to fit into the world of your samples. The session I'm going to use for demonstration includes the following samples: CinePerc, CineWinds CORE, CineBrass CORE, CineHarps, Randy's Celeste, and CineStrings CORE. The solo instrument in this case is a violin. The MIDI work has already been done, bounced to audio, and the best takes of the violinist have been edited together and bounced as one stem. And the violinist was recorded with a mono microphone. So here's the playback of samples only, using only a little treatment. Now here's the violin only, untreated. And now the combination of the violin, untreated, and the samples with a little treatment. Instead of grabbing plugins in hopes of making the violin sound better, let's approach the solution by understanding the difference in acoustics between what we have and what we want. While recording a soloist in any room, there's an ideal placement of the microphone that's not too close and not too far. Where is that magic place? Listen to a musician playing while closing one ear. This is exactly what the microphone hears. With both ears open, our brains have the psychoacoustic ability to focus on a sound and tune out all the ambience and the reflections. The microphone cannot do that. Notice while only using one ear, you hear more ambience and you'll want to move closer to the soloist. This is where you should place the microphone. Here's an example in Sony. Tina's microphones are about 1 meter from her cello and about 13 meters from the nearest wall. In a small room, try to apply the same ratio. If the nearest wall or ceiling is 3 meters from the soloist, the mic should then be placed about 3 divided by 13 or about 9 inches from the soloist. Now, placing the microphone that close picks up extreme volume peaks in various frequency ranges that are normally smoother when recording from a distance. When close to a violin, the sound is edgier, brighter, more dynamic, and certain notes stick out more than neighboring notes. In order to reduce these problems, we bring the mic back a bit. The sound becomes less edgy because the reflections in the room lose high-frequency energy. The overall dynamics and the dynamics of certain notes are smoother because the reflections add diffusion to the volume. However, in a small room, when we move the mic back, we hear more of the walls. The mic picks up more reflections than the direct signal, which gives the recording a small, confined space sound that does not match the room in which the sample orchestra was recorded. So now let's find a practical solution for our violin recording. The small room reflections in our recording are unavoidable. However, they can be hidden by using the right reverb. The close characteristics can definitely be reduced. I often find a good tape emulation can help with harshness, although it's not totally necessary. The classical setting on the Studer seems to be the least intrusive. As for EQ, don't chase every note that sticks out with an EQ. Just find a gentle overall setting that works for the entire piece. In this case, I'm reducing about 2.2 kilohertz. Roll off the low end in case you didn't use a high-pass filter during recording. Here it is, bypassed and active. To help rein in the dynamics, I'll add a gentle compressor to reduce the extreme dynamic passages. I'm using a 2-to-1 ratio with gentle gain reduction. Here it is, bypassed and active. Next, I'll add a multiband compressor to tame certain frequency ranges, mostly the upper mids and the highs. I'm also raising a little bit between 100 and 200 Hz for more intimate presence. Here it is, bypassed and active. The compressor cannot do this job because it covers the entire frequency range of the violin. The multiband compressor can focus in on frequency ranges. Notice there's still a note that's sticking out. It's D4. That note is too narrow to tame with the multiband compressor, so I'm going to return to the EQ and set it so it only reduces for that note. Now that we have our sound shaped the way we want it, I'm going to go to reverb. So I want to choose a reverb that matches my samples. Most orchestral studios are halls with an average reverb decay time somewhere between 1.7 and 2.3 seconds. I have a reverb that I'm using that I've designed to match our recordings at Sony. Notice how it starts to blend in with the samples better. It feels like the spaces are more matched now. You can use just about any reverb though. I'm going to try FabFilter's Pro R. I'll open it up and set the reverb time to the lower side of that range, about 1.7 seconds. And then I'm also going to reduce the brightness. I'm going to add a Longtail Reverb to the samples for taste. It's a medium random hall from the Lexicon PCM 96. The reverb time is about 2.9 seconds, and the bass return is about 0.75x. That reduces the muddiness a bit. What that means is below a certain frequency, the reverb time is only 3/4 of the main reverb time. Since the orchestra has that reverb, the violin should too, in order to maintain the same space. Here's what it sounds like when I add this same reverb to the violin. Now let's reconsider the Longtail Reverb for the violin, acoustically speaking. In a concert setting, a soloist stands at the edge of the stage in a large hall. While that soloist sound has the same reverb qualities of the hall that the orchestra has, since they're in the same place, there's more than one good reason to place the soloist at the front of the stage. Not only to be closer to the audience, but the soloist is also the farthest away from any wall, and therefore the direct sound will have a better chance of reaching most of the audience first before the reflections. So let's try to emulate that by adding a pre-delay to the violin before it reaches the Longtail Reverb. I set up a delay on a separate aux return. It's about 80 to 95 milliseconds. Its output goes to the random hall, so I'll send the violin to that delay. Notice this creates some separation between the soloist and the orchestra while maintaining the same space. You could apply a pre-delay to the small reverb as well for increased presence. I would probably choose a smaller delay, perhaps about 40 milliseconds. I hope this helps you next time you add a live soloist to orchestral samples. Of course, I cannot address the varying issues that occur with each possible solo instrument, but many of these techniques might apply to other instruments.